Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition live forum. I'm your host, David Dadakian with Eat Drink Rhode Island, a small business here in Rhode Island. And we've got another great guest with us today. We're going to talk about what's been going on in the General Assembly, a lot of small business issues. It's really great to have Representative Karen Alzate with us today. Welcome, Representative.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Always nice when it's just the slowness of the catching up with the stream sometimes. There we go. Fantastic. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We love talking small business with members of the General Assembly because we get into the nitty gritty of the laws, and I know you certainly are into the nitty gritty of the laws, which is fantastic. You represent is it all Pawtucket, or do you overlap a little bit into other parts of the state?
So I started off with just Pawtucket, but now because of redistricting, I will be in a little bit of part of Central Falls.
That's what I thought. Yes, fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So why don't you, before we dive into questions and everything, why don't you give us just a brief review of what you've been up to and what how long you've been in the General Assembly, things of that nature, so for folks out there who don't know you.
Yeah, so Karen Alzate, I'm in my second term and running for reelection. So it's been an honor to serve my community in this way. I ran in 2018, seen lots of really great changes and mostly positive, so no complaints there. I've been doing I'm also the chair of the Black Latino Caucus. I'm a term for 2 years. So that's been a great honor to really represent my colleagues in the House and in the Senate. Also been trying to work on some healthcare legislation in the years that I've been there, education. I sit on labor, which has been something I didn't think I would like, but I actually really enjoy it. And so just trying to really learn how we can get really good laws passed, make sure that we're really standing up for the people who really need the help. So it's been a blessing to be in this position and, hopefully going into my third term.
Fantastic. Yes, we should point out to our listeners, our viewers, you are running for re-election. Not everyone is, but it is great that you are. So
Yeah.
good luck to you on your campaign and moving forward.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So let's dive right in. I know from corresponding with you on some small business issues relating to food and drink, how passionate you are about it, and I appreciate that just from Twitter and all. I appreciate your passion
Yeah.
for food and drink in general. So thank you for that. But there's lots of other small business issues that we can talk about, and I think we should probably start with the budget since it's coming up for the full vote and talk about this week.
Mhm.
We've talked about on the show before with other representatives such as Greg Amore was on and Barbara Ann Fenton Fung was on. Some of these issues that are in the budget, such as the tax person at the Division of Taxation to help people with their taxes, lowering the corporate tax rate, things of that nature. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts on some of these small business issues that are in the budget?
So I think, I'm still going through it. It is a really dense information.
Right.
So I think, we really have to take a look and be aggressive as to what it is that we're doing to help our small businesses because we saw that the past 2 years and even now, right, the pandemic is still not over. They're still struggling a lot. There
Yes.
was a lot of help that came out from, the Small Business Association and then the federal government and all that, which was great. However, you know, a lot of it was grants and which was wonderful for them. Some of them took out loans, and so we're starting to see that they got to start paying that stuff back, making sure that we're not continuing to overtax them or trying to really bring in some relief. Because we saw that a lot of small mom and pop shops that have been around for years really did not withstand the pandemic. And so we have to make sure, and also, we had some really great small businesses that came out of the pandemic, right?
Right.
And so we want to make sure we want to support both sides. Definitely some of the relief stuff I think is really good. And just being creative in how we do that. And I think we're going to have to continue to be creative, whereas maybe in past years we weren't.
It's an interesting way of putting it. I think I know I just saw a small business that I frequented this past week decide to close up shop, and I saw
Mm,
another one, a restaurant that actually didn't reopen for the season because they
mm,
couldn't. couldn't get staffing.
Yeah.
So they were a seasonal restaurant to begin with, but now we're into the summer restaurant season, and they couldn't get staffing, so they didn't reopen. We see a lot of these stories, and you're right. I think we for better or worse, think of the pandemic as mostly past, but there's still a lot of residuals to it. I think I certainly I'm not someone who thinks that the stock market is reflective of the economy as a whole, but certainly what's going on in that sector of the economic world is not looking good at the moment, and I keep seeing the R word pop up more and more over the
Yeah.
last few days. What are your thoughts there? How do you feel the economics of Rhode Island are doing with what's going on with the budget and things of that nature?
Yeah, so I think that this is, from first glance and from the conversations I've been having with some of my colleagues, it's not we're never going to get a perfect budget. But I think that there are some really great things in there that are really going to be helping us in the future, which I think they're investments. One of the things that I really appreciated the speaker when he first was elected this time around was he said that we need to make sure we invest in Rhode Islanders. And, if you follow me on Twitter and I, we have to invest in our people. And that's definitely something that I'm always driving home is, I live in a community that for a really long time, people did not invest in, even its own residents. I run into some older folks who, when I tell them I'm from Pawtucket, they tell me, oh, I grew up there, and then they left. And and that to me is so sad because like I love my city, and I even Central Falls, being so close, and especially Central Falls being so small, like I love living there, and I want to make sure that I continue to do the best that I can to invest in our schools and our roads and our healthcare, our elderly population, and even the small businesses that have been there for years, right? I'm a kind of person that is very nostalgic, and so some of like the old places, the mom and pops, that are no longer there, it's kind of like we have to really look at what we're investing our money in, right? And so I think people are really afraid of the word recession,
Yeah.
because we think about what history has taught us, and I hope that we can learn something from that so that we, if it is happening, if it is going to come, if it is going to happen, we need to prepare better because we
Yeah.
can't continue to allow small businesses to close, or kids to go hungry, or parents to work 2-3 jobs just to pay rent, and that doesn't include all the other activities. And
Yeah.
so it's not a one and done kind of thing. It's definitely an investment, and I appreciate the speaker for and many of my colleagues. Right, you said that Greg was on here. Greg is definitely somebody who thinks about how do we invest in people, especially with his background of being a teacher. He wants to make sure he gives the tools to his students to succeed, and it's not just in the classroom. Right, because he's so versatile. He
Yeah.
is a teacher, but he's also an athletic director, and he is also an elected person, and so we have to make sure that we're looking long term, but making sure we're taking care of the right now.
Yeah, agreed. We should touch upon the for Rhode Island, pretty sizable surplus that we're looking at right
Yeah.
now, and those types of investments. What I think is fascinating is, as I've been part of the Small Business Coalition for over 2 years now, uh, and doing this program and talking to all the elected officials that I do speak with, and people in the small business community, there's so much that we don't think of as small business, but it all affects. Like education
Yeah.
affects small business,
Yeah.
housing affects small business.
Hmm.
Obviously, you can draw a direct line to, okay, housing, construction workers, small
Yep.
construction businesses, but there's indirect lines. More
Hmm.
workers here living in affordable housing are more employees for those types of places that I talked about that couldn't reopen because they didn't have employees. So we've got this surplus. We've got this sizable amount of money that is bonus money. Obviously, it's not, but
Hmm.
we have to be smart about it. But where
Yeah.
do you see the best ways of putting that? Not only with the budget, but looking forward. Thinking about the ARPA funds that each state.
Yep.
Where do you think the path is right now that the General Assembly is looking at?
So, housing has been one of the biggest conversations that we've had for a couple years, but even more so. Definitely, we have to make sure that people are housed, because it's a trickle effect. If they're not housed, they don't have good health if they don't have good health, they can't be productive employees. They
Right.
don't have jobs. It's kind of like a big circle. For me, my biggest thing is education. I genuinely believe in the education is power, and so making sure that we are investing in the school construction bonds and what that really means for a lot of our communities. Pawtucket right now is in conversations about having a unified high school, and
Yep.
everybody talks about East Providence High School and how beautiful that is. And our kids deserve that. I've spoken to some of my colleagues in South Kingston who they got a brand new high school a couple years ago, and they said that their student scores went up dramatically. Right? We know where we need to invest our money. Education, housing, healthcare, and really like job creation. Because what we're seeing now is job shortage, not a job shortage, but a staff shortage
Yeah.
because of the way some of these jobs are paying. We know that if you don't have a good salary, you can't even afford rent,
Yeah.
right? And
Let's
that's
talk
like the
about that for a minute.
minimum.
I want to really talk on that because I don't think we've talked about that enough. And I think from a small business perspective, it's there's a difficulty there because I understand as a human being, not as a business owner, as a human being, that all these prices are going up, inflation's rising. So that means I need to make more, you need to make more. Every person out there
Yeah.
needs to make more to pay for these things because they're not going to come back down in price.
Yeah.
Realistically speaking, it's not going to come back down in price.
Hmm.
So people's salaries need to increase.
Hmm.
It's a it's people. I know there's people watching this right now like, you're crazy, you can't raise salaries, and I get that. For a small business owner, it's hard to do that, especially as dramatically as inflation is. It's difficult to increase someone's salary at the same rate of inflation.
Yeah.
Your businesses
Hmm.
just don't do that. They don't increase at the same pace. So what is there a solution there? What do you I mean, do we is there, there's things like the $250 child tax credit, which is great for parents. I look forward to the $500 that I can receive for my two kids.
Hmm.
Um, it's a small drop, but it's a helpful drop. I think I think it's unfortunate at the federal level child tax credit went away. But what else can we do? What can be done to help salaries increase, but not impact these small businesses as tough as it may be?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we have to get creative, right? With some of the stuff that we had been talking about last year, the Black Latino Caucus was able to pass $15 minimum wage. I know that that is a lot for small businesses because we did hear that small businesses would be hurt from this, but
Yeah,
this has been going around for years, right? And by the time that we get to 15, um, that is not going to be enough, right? And so
well,
we have to
I
get
mean,
creative.
you're absolutely right. The fascinating thing is, again, mine is anecdotal, but just in talking to people I know who own small
Hmm.
businesses, they're almost
Yeah.
almost everyone I talk to is at 15 or more at the moment anyway.
Yeah, which is great. But right now that's still not enough, right? And
Right.
so we have to really make sure we're not taxing people as much as we tax them, right? Something I hear often is that Rhode Island taxes people a lot. So there's a bill for that, making sure that we're taxing the highest earners in Rhode Island, so that way we're creating revenue from one tax source, right? And what could we do with that money, right? We put that into the general fund, and we put it into schools so we don't have to take out so much bond money. And I don't know that people necessarily understand bond money, right?
No.
And so that goes into our taxes. The stadium that is being proposed in Pawtucket, right? That is it's not the stadium, it's so much more, right? It's revenue space, it's housing developments, it's retail space, it's office space, it's restaurants, right? There's revenue there. We have to come up with creative ways to create revenue, because if we don't do that, then it really is going to impact our small businesses. And in my mind, when I think of small businesses, I think of like restaurants, right? Because I love food, and I it's I did that during college, but we those are the people who are going to get hurt the hardest, and we
Yeah.
need to make sure that the revenue that is coming in also trickles down to them. And so it's really about getting creative on how we can generate more revenue. That's one way. Making sure that we're investing in like workforce development, right? Because we need to understand that a lot of our high school kids don't want to go to college. So what is going to be their path to meaningful work, right? Tech programs, the trades, that's really big. You know, thinking about the stadium and how many jobs that's going to create
Right.
for so many local Rhode Islanders. And construction jobs pay really well. People don't
Oh yeah.
necessarily understand that. So I think really driving, being creative, thinking outside the box a little bit. Um, you know, our General Assembly is very diverse in both age, race, and gender. And so there's a lot of really great ideas that are floating around. Now we just have to make sure that they work well and we can implement them.
That's an excellent point. I mean, I think Pawtucket's a great example. I mean, obviously, you represent the people of
Mhm.
Pawtucket, and you're doing a great job. But I had Mayor Grebian on a few months ago, and no, this is not a slight on you, but no one can be a cheerleader for Pawtucket quite like Don.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
He's amazing.
I'm trying to
You
be.
are. You're great. Honestly, I'm not trying to take away from you in any way, shape, or
Yeah,
form. It's
yeah.
just that Don like goes above and beyond.
Yeah. He
He
does a
sees the
great job.
yeah. He just loves what he's doing. So yeah, I
Mhm.
think you know, to your point, yeah, construction of those properties in Pawtucket would be huge. But I think again, housing is extraordinarily important. Like you touched upon,
Mhm.
people. If we want people in those jobs in Pawtucket, we need to have affordable housing for them to live in. It's this
Exactly.
whole cycle, and then I think education. I don't think enough can be said about education. I think people sometimes, especially people in some of these communities who get older, they don't have kids in school. They think, oh, I don't, education is not as important to me. But I always liken it to when I talk to the people in my community, and when they get frustrated about there's not enough staff at a place or there's not enough qualified staff at a place sometimes.
Yeah.
I said, well, if the kids were educated, then you'd have these employees. I mean, it's a whole cycle. I
Yeah.
think and I think to your point, the CTE programs are doing well.
Mhm.
In our high schools. And I think to see, I have not seen the school in East Providence, but I've seen pictures of it. It is gorgeous, like you said.
It's gorgeous.
To do that in Pawtucket would be amazing
Yeah.
as well. We need that throughout the state. I mean, in
Mhm.
Coventry High, where I live, needs improvement as well. So
Yeah.
there's always that process.
Come to Pawtucket.
Okay, so what's that?
Come to Pawtucket. Move to Pawtucket. You
One
will.
thing at a
You
time. The
will.
housing market right now, no one's moving anywhere. I mean, I'm not even going to get into the cost of real estate. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, but I mean, if you're a small business owner who owns a real estate agency, good for you right now.
Yeah.
Good luck.
For
Good luck with
sure.
what you're doing. Okay, so let's drill down to a few more specific things with bills in the in that you've seen this session. What stands
Mhm.
out to you for helping small businesses? What we'll talk about the happy hour one a little bit because I guess we've been involved with that personally. But what else stands out for you for small businesses for this session? What do you think is going to make it through to the end, or maybe get debated in the next couple of weeks because the session's almost over?
Yeah, so I think right now we're just focusing on what's in the budget for small businesses. Honestly, whatever relief is coming, and whatever investments are in the budget to help small businesses. That's really been the driver to a lot of these conversations,
Okay.
and the driver to a lot of whatever bills have been passed. Before, I know last year we did a really good one with to go drinks. That was a big help to the restaurants, right? Like for small businesses, kind of my focus because it's something I feel like I know well enough, and because I lived it. So I think whatever is in the budget that is bringing relief to small businesses, that's really the focus for the next week. As we pass the budget, and if there's any bills they're going to be coming up, although I haven't seen small business committee come up yet,
No.
to be have any bills up or anything. So I think that's the same thing with the chairwoman. I think she's just focused on like what is in the budget for small businesses. And like I said, like there's so many of us, right? So many people
Right.
had a hand in putting this budget together.
It does seem, from the outsider's perspective, as someone who's observed this for over a decade now, and had conversations with so many reps and senators over the last 10 years, that it
Hmm.
does seem a bit more. I don't want to say inclusive as if it was exclusive before, because I don't, but it
Hmm.
does seem a little more inclusive this year. It does seem a little more processed out and a little more transparent in what's going on
Yeah.
there, which is which is nice to see.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So before we dive into the happy hour and the things that
Hmm.
we dealt with personally, I want to just say to anyone out there watching this on Facebook right now, if you're live, you have a question for the representative. If you'd like to put it into the comments there on Facebook, please do, and I'll ask it
Hmm.
in a minute. But let's for what we did. We did this when Greg was on, and I didn't when I talked to Barbara Ann, but we should do it with you. Help the folks out there understand the process of taking a bill through a session and what the process is, because a lot
Yeah.
of people out there, they kind of vaguely know, but they don't know the exact
Hmm.
process. So run us through that, and then when you get to the end of the process, we'll talk about happy hour a bit.
Yeah. Um, so I think the process is different for different legislators, right? In the terms that in the way that they do work, right? So in the bill that we're going to discuss, it was an idea that had been floating around on Twitter actually for a long time, and conversations with my friends and at restaurants and things like that. And so it was like, and then we Rhode Island, we love to look at what our neighbors are doing.
Right.
We are nosy neighbors. And so, we kind of just figuring out what it is that they're doing and how can we implement something here, because we don't want people to go to Massachusetts or spend money in Massachusetts or Rhode Island. And I'm a border city,
Well,
so
exactly.
I know that.
Right.
I
It's
know
so
I
easy.
know the benefits of that.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
mean, and especially where you are, Providence, East Providence, Seekonk, and
exactly.
Attleboro are so easy.
Yeah, exactly. So talk to, our legislative council, and I was like, hey, listen, I have this idea. Can you help me draft up language for that? And so there's a lot of research that goes into that. They look at other bills that have similar language, and they turn it into language that could be used here in Rhode Island. They look at maybe policies that are associated with that particular subject, and make sure that if we're trying to pass something, we get rid of that policy and however we get rid of it. So they put in a lot of language that has to be taken out as well, right? So to the public, if you go online, some of the language that they take out is in red. So it's like
Right.
outlined in red. It's just so you know that that's what stands as of today. And then the blue part is the new language.
Right.
And so,
I think that's a good point. I want people to highlight. Sometimes a bill isn't about so much about creating a new law. It's about removing parts of old laws that are antiquated.
exactly. And some of those old laws are what really either stop us or affect what the work that we're trying to do, progress, if you will. And so we
Yep.
introduce this bill, and depending on where it falls into a committee. And so then you have a committee hearing, and that's the best place for the sponsor, the legislator, to really discuss why this bill is important and why they're putting it in. And then it's public testimony, why people are for it, why people are against it. It's really a great opportunity to ask questions of other members of the committee. If, how is this going to affect? Because some laws affect um, other cities differently,
Right.
just because of antiquated laws that are still in the books. And so what we do is we hold all of our bills for further study, because sometimes these bills they're good intentions, but the way that they're written and the way that they'll be implemented are really they might not be good.
Yep.
And so we hold them for further study, and that's exactly what we do. We study them further. We speak to more legislators who might have knowledge. We talk to other lawyers who might have knowledge, and then you kind of just go and present it to the leadership, right? Really have them understand why this bill is important or why it's good, and especially if it's like a certain subject matter. The public might even talk to leadership, let them know why this is important. Some people would call them lobbyists. Some people are just, they're just regular everyday people who really just think that this bill is important. And so, you work it out and you hope that it's up to the best intention and it's written correctly. That's really important, because
Right.
sometimes we pass bills that have really great intent, but then when they get implemented, it's actually not a good implementation due to the way that the bill is written. Um, and if you get enough people to like the bill and they think it's a good bill, you put it on the floor and you get a pass, and so they pass it on the floor like happy hour in the house.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So now,
Hmm.
okay, so now that is what happened in the House. We did
Yeah.
see the happy hour bill passed, and it doesn't seem, though I haven't looked at the most recent schedule. Well, I
Hmm.
checked it this morning, but it doesn't seem like it's going to go to the Senate this
Yeah.
year. So for those of people out there who've seen that happen many times, I mean, it's not uncommon. It does happen.
Hmm.
It's unfortunate when that happens, but it does happen.
Hmm.
This is not new to
Yeah.
this particular bill. So next year, you don't have to reintroduce and revote and all of that. In committee, correct?
So.
You can essentially go
Mhm.
straight to just having the bill exist again.
So it depends, right? Ideally, if we keep the same rules. So because of the term, right? So because this is an election year,
Right.
um, we have to keep the same rules. And the House has this rule. The Senate doesn't have that rule. This
Right.
year, we were able to roll over bills because we have that rule. So we're allowed to keep
Yep.
bills alive for 2 years. But next year, we don't know, right? The speaker could come in. It could be a completely different speaker. I hope not, because I love our current speaker. And they could change the rules. They could be completely different.
It's a good point. That's a good point. I
Hmm.
didn't think about that. If there is a change of speaker, that's a very good point. Well, we're
Exactly.
still trying. In the case of this particular bill, we're still asking Senate leadership to try and move it forward.
Yeah.
Hopefully that will
Hmm.
happen before the end of the session. But it's one of those things. I understand the pros and cons of the bill. We've just
Hmm.
discussed it ourselves and other people.
Yeah.
Over and over many times. Uh, and certainly there, any bill of any kind has positive
Yeah.
and negative.
For sure.
So hopefully we
There's
can.
no there's not one perfect bill.
Right. There never is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I mean that's the reality of it. I've also
Mhm.
worked heavily with cottage foods this year, and hopefully we'll
Mhm.
see that happen. In a small way. I mean, I think unfortunately sometimes we look at our neighbors and don't do quite as much as our neighbors, and still kind of end up with something that's a little less than Connecticut and Massachusetts
Yeah.
have. I think of the cannabis bill is great. I mean I'm not for or against the use
Mhm.
of it, but I think from an economic standpoint, it's fantastic that we passed it. I do find it odd that we're still going to have all these billboards on 95 for Massachusetts and
Yeah.
none for Rhode Island. So
Hopefully we can get some in Rhode Island and Connecticut. Some
right. Yes,
some
exactly.
billboards.
Hopefully, right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Hopefully, we can
Yeah.
compete in the other states. But I think things like that,
Mhm.
we still have to make the steps forward and
Yeah.
get these things through.
Yep.
But thank you for that summary. I think that was great. Great to go through that like that.
Yeah.
Ben, do we have any questions on Facebook for the representative?
We do not at the moment, David.
Let's see if we've got anywhere.
We do not at the moment, David.
No, doesn't look like any popping up on the screen there, so I guess not at the moment. As always, if you joined us a little late, you came into this a little late, you can watch us on Facebook after the fact. You can go back and watch the entire video afterwards. These are archived, as well as all the previous shows are archived as well. Uh,
Mhm.
Anything else you'd like to add, Representative, before we wrap up here today?
No, just I'm excited for so many good things to come to Pawtucket and Central Falls. I'm always inviting people to the city. We're really blossoming. I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised because Pawtucket is definitely turning into that hidden gem. We have
Yeah.
tons of great activities. If you're into the brewery scene, Pawtucket is definitely up there.
Oh yeah.
Our food is phenomenal in Central Falls.
Yep.
And so, I'm always inviting people to come to the city. I'm happy to give them a tour. I've actually done that to some legislators because I don't think
Nice.
that they've ever, been that way. So I'm excited to see what Pawtucket has in store for the state of Rhode Island.
Fantastic. I'll give a little plug
Yeah.
for an event happening this Thursday at Lorraine Mills there in Pawtucket. My friends of mine
Yeah.
who own White Dog Distilling are doing a whole mill. There's a whole bunch of great businesses in the mill there for food and drink, and
Yeah.
so
It's awesome.
they're doing a little bit of a crawl there. There's Ming's and Cakes by Ebony and
Hmm.
Crooked Current breweries in there. So yeah,
Yep.
go eat and drink and enjoy Lorraine Mills on Thursday this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, or
Perfect.
anytime. It just happens that they're doing an event
Yeah.
this Thursday. But really, you can go to the mill anytime, anytime, and enjoy
Hmm.
all the great small businesses. So,
Something to do.
yeah, you should. It's a lot of fun. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
spot. Well, thank you again for your time today. We really appreciate it. It's great talking with you. Great getting some more insight on the workings of the General Assembly. We really appreciate your thoughts, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Great. Thank you so much.
That was Representative Karen Alzate, represents Pawtucket and a little bit of Central Falls as well. So that was fantastic to hear from her today. We've got some great guests coming up in the next few weeks. We certainly hope you watch the shows, especially as we get closer to the election. We have some great people running for election that will be talking with us. In 2 weeks, Treasurer Seth Magaziner, who is running for the United States Congress to fill Langevin's seat since Congressman Langevin is retiring, he'll be on the show. So check out Treasurer Magaziner. And then 2 weeks after Seth is Joy Fox, who's running against Seth in the congressional race. So please check out both of those interviews coming up in the next few weeks. We'll also have Ashley Kalis, who's running for governor. And as you know, we've had another governor candidate on 2 weeks ago. We had Secretary of State. 4 weeks ago, we had Secretary of State Nellie Gorbea. So you can go back and watch that show if you'd like to. She was a very interesting interview. Good to hear from her. And we hope to have a few more candidates on before the primaries in September and the election in November. So as always, go to rismallbusiness.org to sign up for the coalition. Lots of things coming along with the coalition, rismallbusiness.org. And we'll see you again soon. Take care.